Imagine you're a CIA officer or diplomat stationed in Havana, 2016. You're far from home, living in a city that hums with secrets and tension. Every night, the air is thick with humidity, and the city's soundtrack is the steady chorus of crickets outside your window. On this particular night, the familiar chirping fills the darkness until, without warning, it stops. The silence is sudden, unnatural, and it presses in on you, making the room feel smaller, the air heavier. Then out of nowhere, a piercing, high-pitched ringing slices through the silence. It's not just loud, it's sharp, almost surgical, drilling into your skull. You move your head, trying to escape it, but the sound shifts with you, growing louder or softer depending on where you stand. It feels targeted, as if someone is aiming it right at you. Nausea sweeps over you, the room seems to tilt and spin, and a crushing pressure builds behind your eyes, as if your brain is being squeezed in a vice. You struggle to stay upright, fighting waves of dizziness and confusion. Instinctively, you cover your ears, desperate for relief. But it's useless. The sound isn't coming from outside. It's inside your head, echoing in your mind, impossible to block out. You search the room, frantic for a source, a buzzing device, a hidden speaker, anything. But there's nothing. Just the quiet, empty street below, bathed in the yellow glow of streetlights, as if nothing is wrong. Minutes crawl by, then as suddenly as it began, the sound vanishes. The crickets resume their song, but you're left shaken. Your thoughts are foggy, your focus shattered, and simple words slip from your tongue. You whisper to a colleague the next day, hesitant and unsure. Their eyes widen in shock. It happened to me too. The realization sends a chill down your spine. Soon, more people come forward, sharing eerily similar stories. This isn't an isolated incident. It's spreading, and no one knows why. Fear and suspicion ripple through the community. It feels like the opening scene of a real-life spy thriller, except there's no script, no clear villain, and no answers. Only questions and a growing sense of dread. The world would soon call it Havana Syndrome, a targeted, bizarre, and terrifying experience that defied logic and left even the experts baffled. Was it a secret weapon, a mass poisoning, or a psychological operation? No one knew. The questions piled up, rumors swirled, and any hope for answers seemed to vanish into the thick, humid Cuban air, leaving only fear and uncertainty behind. You think this is just a Cuba story? Think again. What started as a strange, isolated incident in Havana would soon spiral into a global phenomenon, one that would baffle governments and terrify diplomats everywhere. The syndrome spread, first to China, then to Russia, Germany, Austria, Vietnam, India, even Washington, D.C. It was as if an invisible hand was reaching across continents, targeting people in the most secure places on Earth. U.S. officials, CIA agents, military personnel, and their families, all hit by the same sudden, localized sensation. A bizarre sound, a wave of pressure, then debilitating after effects. Some collapsed, others suffered memory loss, migraines, or even permanent brain injuries. No shrapnel, no residue, just a ghost attack, striking people in their own homes and embassies. Embassies, once symbols of safety, became danger zones overnight. Intelligence officers now feared an invisible force that could end their careers, or worse, threaten their families. The sense of vulnerability was overwhelming. The U.S. government was stumped. Top scientists, doctors, and security experts were called in. But answers remained elusive. How do you fight what you can't see or prove? How do you defend against a weapon that leaves no trace, no evidence, and no clear motive? The pattern was clear. Mostly American or Canadian officials, often working on Russia-related files. The targets weren't random. They were strategic. It felt coordinated, a new form of asymmetric warfare, where the battlefield was the mind and the enemy was unseen. Forget cyber attacks. This was a neuro attack, infecting not just bodies, but the psyche of the U.S. intelligence community. Paranoia and fear spread faster than any virus. Every headache, every strange noise became suspect. People began to question their own senses, and trust in their surroundings started to erode. Havana Syndrome had gone viral, not just as a medical mystery, but as a psychological contagion, shaking the very foundations of international diplomacy and security. So what does Havana Syndrome actually feel like? Victims describe a sudden, high-frequency buzz or metallic hum, followed by intense pressure, like a laser beam to the skull. Vertigo, nausea, blurred vision, and strange lights hit next. But the real horror is what lingers: chronic headaches, tinnitus, and a brain fog that erases words and memories. Some can't read, can't hold a conversation, can't remember their own kids' names. Brain scans show damage like a concussion, except there's no impact, no accident. For diplomats and spies, it's a professional death sentence. Their sharp minds dulled overnight, careers ended, lives upended. The psychological toll is immense. Frustration, depression, and the pain of not being believed. They're fighting an invisible enemy inside their own heads. If this isn't a disease, what is it? The symptoms are real: headaches, dizziness, memory loss, yet there's no virus, no bacteria, and no clear physical injury. Doctors are left baffled, searching for answers in brain scans and medical histories, but nothing adds up. It feels like something out of a science fiction novel, but for those affected, it's all too real. The leading theory? A directed energy weapon. Technology once imagined in movies, now possibly a terrifying reality. Imagine pulsed microwave radiation, a device that fires invisible focused beams potentially engineered by a foreign adversary. These aren't just wild guesses. Scientists and intelligence agencies are seriously considering this possibility. The Frey effect might explain the bizarre sounds victims report: clicks, buzzing, or even voices that seem to come from nowhere. Microwaves can trick the brain into hearing noises, even when there's nothing in the environment making a sound. The pulses could even create tiny bubbles in brain fluid, which collapse and damage neural tissue. It's a stealth weapon, leaving no trace, no residue, and no obvious evidence for investigators to find. Imagine being injured, disoriented, or disabled through solid walls from hundreds of feet away with perfect deniability. No warning, no visible attacker. For spies and covert operatives, it's the ultimate dream tool. Silent, invisible, and untraceable. But after years of searching, no device has ever been found. Not a single prototype, not a single piece of hardware. The FBI, CIA, and Pentagon have victims, symptoms, and brain scans, but no weapon, no physical evidence to point to a culprit. No smoking gun means no official blame, no one to hold accountable. It's the ultimate act of plausible deniability, an attack that can be denied by everyone and proven by no one. How do you accuse a nation of an attack when you can't even prove a weapon exists? Diplomats dodge questions, investigators hit dead ends, and the world is left guessing. The mystery only deepens, and with every unanswered question, the fear grows, blurring the line between science fiction and reality. But what if there's no weapon at all? Some experts say it's mass psychogenic illness, a collective delusion triggered by stress and suggestion. Spies and diplomats live under constant pressure. The first stories from Havana created a powerful narrative. Now every headache or weird noise is suspect. Anxiety itself can cause real symptoms: headaches, dizziness, nausea. As cases ballooned to over 1,500, most were explained by other factors: medical conditions, environmental toxins, even crickets. The stress and fear created a hyper-vigilant state, turning every sensation into a symptom. It's unsettling. Maybe the weapon isn't microwaves, but fear itself. For those with lasting injuries, this feels like gaslighting. The truth is messy. Maybe a few were targeted, sparking a wider wave of psychogenic illness. The mind is powerful, capable of resilience, but also profound self-deception. Havana Syndrome blurs the line between real attack and psychological contagion. Let's talk numbers. Over 1,500 cases reported worldwide, a headline-grabbing figure. But when the CIA's Project Entangled dug in, most cases had mundane explanations: medical issues, stress, environmental factors. Only about 24 cases fit the classic, inexplicable Havana Syndrome profile. So, is this a global conspiracy targeting a handful, or a mass panic affecting thousands? Intelligence agencies focus on the core cases, trying to separate signal from noise. For victims whose cases are dismissed, it feels like betrayal. Their lives upended, but told they don't make the cut. The divide grows. A few confirmed cases, hundreds left in limbo. The numbers clarify nothing. They just make the story more painful and political. Statistics don't lie, but they don't tell the whole story either. The mystery remains unsolved, and the human cost is real. The US government's response? Committees, investigations, and layers of classified chaos. The CIA, FBI, State Department, and Pentagon all launched separate probes, each with different conclusions. For years, the official line was, "We don't know." Victims felt abandoned, bounced between doctors and officials with no answers. In 2024, a House investigation finally suggested a foreign adversary might be behind some cases, validating victims but naming no names. The military took it seriously. The Army announced a new brain health strategy, preparing for future directed energy attacks. But care for victims lagged. Delays, lost records, and a fractured support system. The government talked tough, but failed at basic care. It's Washington gridlock meets a sci-fi mystery. The victims are left waiting, caught in the fog of bureaucracy. Behind the headlines are real people, public servants whose lives were shattered. Mark Lindsay, a State Department officer in China, heard the sound, suffered headaches and memory loss, and lost his career. Victims fight a two-front war: chronic health problems and a government slow to help. Many spend life savings on doctors, face skepticism, and are accused of making it up. The emotional toll is as damaging as the symptoms. Families are upended, spouses become caregivers, children watch parents decline. The Havana Syndrome Act promised support, but the system is overwhelmed and hard to navigate. These are the forgotten soldiers of a silent, undeclared war. Their wounds are invisible, their enemy unknown, their fight for justice ongoing. The true tragedy, a mystery the world's most powerful government can't or won't solve. So what's the truth? Are we in a new Cold War, with invisible weapons scrambling brains and eroding trust? Or is the real weapon our own minds, mass psychogenic illness spreading through fear and suggestion? In one version, a foreign power is testing a new weapon, sowing chaos and doubt. In the other, anxiety and hypervigilance become a virus, breaking bodies and systems from within. Either way, the result is the same: confusion, pain, and a government paralyzed by uncertainty. Which ghost are we chasing? A new era of invisible warfare, or a mass illusion of our own making? Havana Syndrome is both a medical mystery and a psychological riddle. The first shot in a new global conflict, or proof that paranoia itself can be the deadliest weapon. The story isn't over.